Hey, welcome to Chapter 6 of the Story Cycle System. And guess what? This particular chapter is all about you. In it, we are going to help you develop your brand personality, how you show up in the market, and we're going to cover three really important things. I'm going to get you to arrive at what your promise is, your emotional brand promise, that one word that you deliver on day in and day out with everyone that comes in contact with your brand. We're also going to have you explore your intrinsic gift. It's not what you make that is at the center of this story. It's what you make happen. What is that intrinsic gift you make available to your customers? And then finally, you are going to explore the 12 Jungian archetypes to really understand and define what is your one authentic personality archetype. How does your brand show up in the tone of voice, in the look, in the feel, in the customer experience? And there's a lot that goes into that. So we are going to explore that today as well. Now, as you know, at the beginning of this program, I told you about the hero's journey and how it inspired me when I first learned about it back in 2006 through Hollywood, and how it's been around since the beginning of time, shaping the stories that we absolutely love. I asked myself, why don't we use this in branding? It seems like an absolute natural journey to humanize our brands, and more importantly, to understand and empathize with our audiences and with our customers and totally appreciate the journey they are on, where they are in their journey, and then how and what stories you use and share to connect your world with theirs. And then, of course, to deliver on the promises you make in your story so that you can build lifelong customer relations, ongoing business development, word-of-mouth marketing, and always be there for them. Now, the one thing about the hero's journey is, to me, it works great in films, but it doesn't quite match up perfectly with business. So as you know by now, what I did is took the hero's journey and boiled it down to these 10 steps so that it would make more sense in your journey as a purpose-driven entrepreneur. And we've been going through the first 5 chapters where it's really are setting the scene. They're setting the stage. They're getting you more comfortable with your story because you are understanding where your customers and where your audiences are along their journey. So what have you done so far? Well, you staked out your number one position in the marketplace, what you do differently and more distinctively than your competition, what you stand for so you stand out. Then you identified your top 3 audiences. I like using the Lego man / woman here because think about it. With a Lego dude or dudette, you get to dress them up any way you like, so you can really create these little customer personas so you understand who you are for and how you communicate to them depending on what they are looking for in their journey. Then we looked at stakes. What do they wish to have happen in their world emotionally? And then physically, with the hand right there, what do they want to buy or to buy into to make that wish come true? Now, we don't move unless we're shaking out a status quo, so we talked about disruption in Chapter 4 and what's happening in the marketplace to shake your customers out of what they're normally doing to buy into you for the long run. And then finally, what are the market forces? What are the barriers and obstacles and antagonists that your audiences are up against to buy into you and your product? Or are they up against to buy into someone else's product that you can solve for them? So that's the story tension that makes your story, your brand offering, all the more timely, urgent, relevant, and memorable, depending on how you help your audience deliver and overcome all of that. That's why now we are talking about the meeting of the mentor. In the hero's journey, it comes a little bit sooner. It comes around the call to adventure. But with the story cycle system, I've moved it back a little bit because I want to set the stage, or have you set the stage of what your audiences are all about and what they want and what stories will trigger their will to act. Now it's about you. Now, I talked about first that emotional promise. So I want you to go back and I want you to be thinking about the materials, the narrative, the story that you've been writing so far. And I want you to think about one word. What is that emotional promise that anybody that comes in contact with your brand will experience. And this doesn't matter if these are employees, leaders within your organization, your customers, your vendors, your shareholders, your stakeholders. What do they all have in common? I can tell you for the business of story, I've been told many, many times by people that have gone through the process and have used it, that my emotional promise is enchantment. I want people to wake up to this system, wake up to this process, understand that we are all intuitive storytellers. And when you become intentional about the storytelling that you do, how you connect, and what kind of amazing positive impact you can have in the world. It truly is enchanting. And then when you see brands grow by as much as 600% using this process and being able to articulate their story through the proven story structures I share, well, it is totally enchanting. I think enchantment is at the heart of every great story ever told. What does it do? It's like an elixir. It's like magic. It sucks you into that world so you get to live vicariously through it, even using it as an escape from the mayhem of being a human being. So stories in and of themselves are enchanting when well told. And I think brands need to be enchanting as well. And so that's why my promise, the emotional promise that I like to deliver on here at the Business of Story, is enchantment. So what is yours? The next one is the intrinsic gift. Now, this is a paradigm shift that we all have to make. We think that the story is about our process, how we deliver, the equipment, the software, the mechanics of what we do, because we're very proud of what we've created. And I've fallen into that trap too. I'm very proud of the story cycle system, and will fall into this trap of talking about it when that's just a vehicle for something much, much greater. So what is it that you deliver, that wish fulfillment in your audiences that you deliver, and just your product or service happens to be how you deliver on it? So it's not about what you make, but what you make happen in your customers' lives. To me, what we do here is about excelling. And I have toyed with a number of different gifts here over the 5 years of really focusing on the business of story. And what it always seems to come back is how we help people excel in their careers, with their brands, with their business, with the impact that they want to make in the world, and with their personal relationships by becoming more confident and compelling storytellers. So it's not so much the story cycle system or the ABT or the 5 primal elements of story that we're going to talk about in the next chapter. Those are just the mechanisms or the vehicles to help customers ultimately fulfill this wish of excelling in their lives. So do you see how that works? Remember, your story is not about what you make, but what you make happen, the outcomes in your people's lives that you service. In this chapter 2 now, we are going to talk about the personality. How do you show up? So you probably are getting the sense in chapter 6 here that we are really starting to humanize your brand. Everything leading up to this was the boilerplate, was the foundations, was really getting a sense of how you operate in the business and who you are for and how you deliver to them. But now we want to bring real personality to your brand. And I use Dr. Carl Gustav Jung's approach to archetyping. He's a famous Swiss psychologist who identified these 12 primary personality archetypes that we all as human beings seem to buy into when we meet people, when we're around organizations, that we have a way of categorizing them, their personality and their character. And I have found this to be a really, really powerful way to drill down and understand what the authentic personality is of your brand, which is often a reflection of you. But until you take this time to really consider it, sometimes we're all just jumping around, flying around, just sending out the same old communication of features and functions with a little bit of benefits dropped in, and we're talking about what we make versus what we make happen, until we really start understanding our brand personality. Let me give you an example of how in a commoditized market, which pretty much we all operate in, how when you dial in your personality and the character of your brand, you can really stand out. And so I was thinking about what would be a really fun, different, great example, and maybe an industry that I love, because I think maybe it's kind of universally loved. So let's take a look at ice cream. Now, what I did is I went down the aisle at Safeway and I looked at all the different brands that they had to offer. And then I went online and I explored these same brands and looked at their marketing and looked at, in some cases, their business strategy and brand strategies. And I realized that they all, in each case here, could argue that they have and hold one of the particular and specific archetypes that Carl Jung has identified. And that's what helps them stand out in an otherwise completely commoditized market. Because what do you have in ice cream? You got some dairy products, you got a bunch of sugar, you got some flavoring, and all the rest then is the magic of the brand story. So let's walk through these 12 archetypes, starting with Blue Bunny. Now, to me, Blue Bunny is the innocent archetype. It's idealistic, optimistic, and hopeful. It's not pretentious. It's just kind of like always there for you. And the motto of the innocent archetype is free to be you and me. So just looking at the basic cover, the basic design packaging of the Blue Bunny vanilla flavored ice cream, and you just get the sense of it's delicious, but it's very simple, it's very innocent, and just the name itself kind of says that to me. Next up is the regular guy or gal archetype, and I think this is Hershey's ice cream. Unpretentious and resilient, and especially resilient considering they've been around since, I think, 1895, 126 years or so. But the regular guy or gal archetype is just like it sounds, that neighbor next door that's there to help you out whenever they can. Their motto is all men and women are created equal. And so that they're there sharing their delicious goodness, real ingredients, real ice cream, real smiles as the regular guy or gal archetype. Next up, the hero. Naturally determined and focused. Now, Cold Stone Creamery comes to mind for me here because they are located here, started here in Phoenix. And when you go into a Cold Stone, you see how they bring out the ice cream, they slap it on top of that Cold Stone, and they literally roll their sleeves up and they start folding and melding all of those delicious flavors together. It is kind of a little heroic approach to delivering ice cream. At least it is to me. So to me, it feels like they're very much of a hero brand. Their motto, or the motto of the hero archetype, is where there's a will, there's a way. And by golly, when you go into one of their stores, you see there's the will to fold that all together to give you that delicious ice cream and send you on your way. Next up is the caregiver. Compassionate, nurturing, and dedicated. I don't know, Breyer's all natural, what they do and how they tell their story, to me, feels like they are absolutely the caregiver brand that is there. And the motto of the caregiver archetype is love your neighbor as yourself. So they're just bringing you that rich, chocolatey, delicious, sugary goodness, but they're doing it as naturally as possible. And therefore, for me, feels like the caregiver archetype. Then you have the explorer. Independent, authentic, and curious. Well, if you've ever been to a Baskin-Robbins and you go into their 31 flavors, or I don't know if it's 301 flavors now, you explore. You get to go around, you get to check out, you get to put different flavors on top of different flavors. I mean, I remember the very first time I had licorice ice cream was at a Baskin-Robbins in Bothell, Washington when I bought it, and then watched the 4th of July parade when I was a little kid. And by the time I was all done, I had a black tongue and black lips and I think even black cheeks. It was great fun. But to me, the Baskin-Robbins B&R brand is all about the explorer, the motto being don't fence me in. And by golly, that's what they deliver. You can go in and make any sort of concoction you want. You are not fenced in when you're at a Baskin-Robbins. Then you have the rebel archetype. Unconventional with a cutting-edge approach. And I couldn't think of anyone else but DQ in the Blizzard. I mean, is it a milkshake or is it just a cup full of ice cream with lots of cool chunks of, in this case, Oreos knocked into it? I love it. The delicious stuff, and the Rebels' motto is rules are made to be broken, and it kind of feels like they're breaking them right here. Even when I went and pulled this image down, it was turned upside down. So I think that's telling you a little something about the rebel attitude over at DQ. Next up, the lover. Appreciative, compassionate, and committed. Haagen-Dazs is the absolute lover archetype when it comes to ice cream. Very high-end, premium. It is all about you, and their motto, or the motto of the lover archetype, is you're the only one. So treat yourself to something lovely. Next up is the creator archetype, which is expressive, original, and imaginative. I found Nestle here, the Nestle Parlor Maple Walnut Ice Cream. Now, I haven't had Nestle ice cream, but I went searching for Farrell's. Do you remember that old ice cream parlor? I think there's only one left. Growing up in Seattle, we would always go there, and it was such a creative place. And in fact, I remember that old piano, the player piano they had, the upright player piano that would play ragtime tunes. I would go in and throw in my 15 cents, and then I would sit down and pretend I was playing to the entire Farrell's gathering there. It was nuts. But in place of Farrell's, I found Nestle really plays into this creator archetype of expressive, original, and imaginative, with a motto of if you can imagine it, it can be done. That's the way creators roll. Then you have the jester. I think it's pretty obvious that Ben and Jerry's plays the jester role. Playful, spontaneous, and humorous, with a theme, the overall motto for the jester of you only live once. So you may as well have some fun and terrific ice cream and save the planet while you're at it. Next up, the sage. Intelligent, knowledgeable, and reflective. Well, growing up in the Pacific Northwest, we always had Tillamook products because they come out of Oregon. And so to me, and as you can see on the label here, they're established in 1909, so they've been around a long time. But for me, they have always been sort of the go-to dairy producers. They just seem to know their stuff, and it's produced by farm-owned organizations. So they really know what they're doing. It's delicious, and I just get the sense that they are kind of the sage of the ice cream world. The truth will set you free. That's what they're all about. Now, this next one is really fun because I'd never heard of the brand before, but it makes so much sense. We're going to be talking about the magician archetype. Intuitive, insightful, and inspiring. And my word, unicorn sparkle ice cream. If there is a more magical ice cream out there, I have yet to see it or taste it. So I vote them as the magician archetype in the ice cream world. And the magician's motto is, I make things happen. So perhaps you've got a little bit of magician in your own brand archetype. Finally, let's go to the ruler. Confident, competent, and resourceful. Carte d'Or? I've never heard of this before, but when I went and looked at what were some of the ruler brands and some of the most expensive ones out there, Carte d'Or is right there with their cinnamon biscuit with actual white biscuit pieces in it. If you're going to have ice cream, you may as well have biscuits crunched up in it. The ruler motto, power isn't everything, it's the only damn thing. So I'm placing them as the ruler archetype. Now, when you look at these brands, do you get a sense how even though they are playing in a very commoditized world and you have a lot of different price points here, most of these are premium priced products that stand for something more than just the ice cream. They have a true brand story behind it, and their personality then is played out by really understanding what their archetype is and how they consistently share that with the world. So the question is, what's your archetype? That's what you're going to do in Chapter 6. Download the worksheet, think through these, and actually I've got that deck in here that's going to take you even more in depth into each of the 12 archetypes, give you other examples of brands and how the archetypes show up in them, and then I want you to decide. Pick one primary archetype, one that really is all about who you are and what you stand for, and I think you're going to find that it comes pretty natural. Once you see it, you sense like, yes, this is us. And then pick up to 2 supporting archetypes, because we all show up different times at different places and not always exactly on brand with that particular archetype, because we usually have influences of other more subtle archetypes in our life. Let me give you an example for the business of story. The business of story, my number one archetype is very much the creator. It's the primary archetype. It's authentic to who I am as the founder and what I ultimately stand for. I've been creating my entire life. Been in advertising for 35 years, ran my own agency for 20 of those years, and have really been steeped in storytelling for the past 15 years, all with the purpose of helping you live into and prosper from your most powerful stories. And I try to find the most creative ways to share that with you. My other 2 then supporting archetypes are the magician It symbolizes our approach to teaching the applied science and bewitchery story so that you can nudge the world in any direction you choose. There comes the enchanting, excelling part of my story. And then finally, the sage. I'm getting to the age now. I've been doing this for an awfully long time. So I know what works, I know what doesn't work, and I have found nothing more powerful than the hero's journey and how we have molded it into the story cycle system, what we make, to make extraordinarily powerful things happen in your life. So those are the three primary archetypes: my top archetype of creator, my supporting archetype of magician, and sage. And that's how we show up every day here at the Business of Story. So now it's your turn. You're going to start and you're going to sit down and think about what is that one word emotional promise that you deliver on day in and day out to all of your audiences and to all of your customers. What is the intrinsic gift? How are you fulfilling their wish so that they can get what they want out of life? And then ultimately, how do you show up? What's your primary archetype that focuses and shares your story and expresses your unique personality and the character of your brand to the world? It's a very, very powerful thing. Someone once said, just be yourself because everyone else is already taken. Well, this is where your personality archetyping comes in. So check it out, get after it, and let me know how it goes for you.